All right, welcome back to the Buzz Pod. I'm your host Nico Blatchman, and joining us today is arguably the best-looking guy in the National Hockey League, number 6 for the Arizona Coyotes, Jakob Chycrun. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Thanks for coming on, man. We're gonna get right into this, dude. Not only are you the best-looking guy in the National Hockey League, or arguably the best-looking guy in the National Hockey League, you have a unique path to the National Hockey League. You grew up in Florida. Can you talk a bit about growing up in Florida, but with an NHL dad, which is pretty much like growing up in Florida with a regular dad, honestly, down here.
Yeah,
But that added kind of like the hockey part of your life, which is your life, literally. So can you talk about like growing up in Florida, but having that in your household?
yeah, for sure. I think the game's growing so much, and it's so great to see. But growing up in Florida, I think it's just I consider myself very lucky to have grown up in Florida. Experience the Florida lifestyle, be able to call Florida home, go to the beach on the weekend, and then go to the rink during the week. You know what I mean? It's a great lifestyle. That's why there's so many ex-NHLers that, like you said, end up retiring down there. And the game's grown so much because all the ex-NHL guys seem to continue to stay with the minor hockey in Florida, and they want to help grow it. And luckily, my dad he kind of coached me my whole life growing up, and he really made the game fun for me. He gave me every opportunity to play other sports. I played every other sport growing up, but I knew, at a young age, hockey was what I wanted to do. Um, and yeah, I mean, I played in Florida till I was um, what was it? I guess 13 years old.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then my parents didn't want me leaving the house at 13, so I ended up playing for Detroit Little Caesars for 2 years. But I was still living in Florida, so I was going to school during the week in Florida, and then every Friday or Thursday, my dad and I would fly to Detroit. I'd play in tournaments for Little Caesars and play games. Did that for 2 years, and then I actually got drafted to USHL. I was going to go play in the USHL at 15, but USA Hockey wouldn't let me play, so I was scrambling looking for a place to play, and I went to Toronto that year for the Junior Canadians, and then got drafted to OHL from there. So it was a unique path.
Yeah, fuck, dude, you just covered a lot.
I bet.
But yeah, dude, I mean, you played for the Florida Everblades growing up, and you were going to American Heritage in Florida like a normal kid, and then you just touched on playing for Little Caesars, but staying at home, living at home. I remember you came out to a couple practices with us back then, when I was playing for the Florida Alliance, and I always remember you just being like more mature than everyone physically, but also mentally. Like I feel like you've always known your goal was to play in the National Hockey League, and even at that age, I feel like all of everyone's goal is to play in the National Hockey League. And but I feel like you had already taken a step up to the next level in maturity and going to the rink, and it was kind of like business for you. Like you were there to get better. And talk about like having that step up, and like did that come from your dad, or was that just something that you were born with?
Yeah, no, I think you honestly said that perfect. I found I just kind of matured pretty young, and I was a very, very dedicated, motivated kid. Like you said, I knew I wanted to play in the National Hockey League, and I wanted to be, one of the best at what I did. And I think that's ultimately what carried me on through the way I went about, my days, and everything for me at that age kind of revolved around hockey and revolved around me getting better. And I mean, dude, I would work out like twice a day. I'd be at the rink for hours, and it's definitely not a normal lifestyle. You got to sacrifice a lot, but I think I was willing to make those sacrifices, which not a lot of kids are. And obviously in Florida, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of parties. There's a lot of fun stuff going on around you, and I was able to block that out. And I think, part of it probably was my dad, my parents, and just the way I was raised, and the other part was probably just the way I'm wired, and wanting to, chase my goals and chase my dreams. And um, yeah, but you said that best. I mean, that was great.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. Like I just remember back in the day, like not only you coming into the room and being physically bigger, but just like your focus, like where you were at, what you wanted, like you could just tell, like you weren't there to joke around. You were maybe there to have fun. You were having fun either way. Like when you're playing hockey, you're having fun, even whether you're taking it seriously or loosely. You know what I mean? But like you can tell that you had that. Like looking back on it now, I can tell you had that step up. Back then, I was like, "Fuck this guy. He doesn't want to be my friend."
Right.
But no, yeah, like definitely, I look back on it and I think like, this guy, like he knew what he wanted. He had a goal in mind. He came in, he put in work, and like that's what he did. And you touched on trying to go into the USHL as an underager for Des Moines, and the USHL didn't allow it. I think I remember Des Moines wanted you,
That
and
was
you made the
Youngstown.
team. Oh, Youngstown.
Yeah, so they have, I forget how it works exactly, but they have those different phases to the draft.
Right, right.
And I remember like no one takes 15-year-olds. It's really, that doesn't happen often. I think there was only like a handful that were taken that year. And so it's just kind of uncommon, but it happened before. Like I actually played with a kid, Tony D'Angelo, in Sarnia and in Arizona. And he played in the USHL at 15, and a few others have done it. So, I ended up going to the camp as a 15-year-old in Youngstown. The team, they had a meeting with me like a few days into camp. They said, look, we want you on the team. You already made the team. Let's get you going. They had a billet family for me. I was going to live with Kyle Connor, who plays for Winnipeg now. And then I visited the high school. What was it called? It was I forget the name of it, but it was a really nice high school, like a private high school, and I was going to get enrolled in there. So like everything was ready to go. The team said, "Look, we're just going to talk to USA Hockey. They shouldn't mind. It shouldn't be a big deal. Like expect to play here next year." So I was so excited, and then USA Hockey dragged it out the entire summer. Like guys were reporting to Youngstown, and I was still at my cottage because I didn't know if I was allowed to go, and they just basically sent me an email, just like two sentences, like really short, and it kind of pissed me off. So then I ended up going and playing in Canada, and that year, Team Ontario, Team Canada asked me to play in a U17 tournament as a 15-year-old. So I played as an underager, and that kind of got me started with Team Canada. So it was kind of, I had that sour taste in my mouth, and I hadn't turned. They thought I was going to play in the OHL regardless, but the reality of it is I wasn't, turning down the U.S. program or that path either. Like I was keeping all my options open, and ultimately when they didn't let me play, I moved on from that. So.
Yeah, definitely. I actually wanted to get into that because that actual year, instead of playing in the USHL where you had made the team, you were a fucking monster back then. You still are, but like for that age, and then you end up going to Toronto for your OHL draft year. So you go to Toronto, you play for the Junior Canadians, and you exploded that year. I mean, I know that the years before they don't have all your stats up there in Elite Prospects because Little Caesars is a shit ton of tournaments and stuff. But I mean, for you, they had like your first year with Little Caesars, 15 games, 8 points, and then your second year, 25 games, 18 points. Both years like as an underager. But then that year with the Toronto Junior Canadians, you had 43 points in 29 games. So like I feel like your game just like exploded compared to maybe you were like lighting up the tournaments in Little Caesars, but like from the stats that I have here, you were under a point per game like both those years in Little Caesars, and then now it's your draft year. You're also finally playing with guys your age, which you
Yeah.
haven't done. You've been playing up the whole time. So can you talk about like that season and like now that you've like decided USA Hockey kind of didn't accept you, and now you've gone to Toronto for your OHL draft year.
Yeah. So those Detroit years were like really, really good hockey. Like hockey in Detroit, every team in Detroit is pretty much like, I remember there was that website, the US rankings, and like every Detroit team was in the top 10. So like every team you were playing against was unbelievable. So like it was hard to dominate that league. And I was an underager, like you said. I think I like led both years in D-man scoring for that high performance hockey league. It's called the HPHL. But those were like two of the best years of hockey, like playing against some of the best talent and all that. And Little Caesars, actually, we were the worst team in Detroit those 2 years, if I'm being
Oh,
honest. Like, we were by far the worst team in Detroit. I wasn't really educated on it. I was moving, like everyone in Florida went to prep school, right? So I had to find a place to play. And Detroit, Little Caesars was kind of the first team to call me. So we were just like, sure, like we'll do it, let's go. And I had no knowledge on how good the team was or any of that. But anyways, those were great years of hockey. And then there was rumors, like I was playing against Sean Day a lot. He was on CompuWare, and there was rumors of that exceptional status and all that. And I never applied for that. Sean Day ended up doing that path. We didn't end up doing that, so I ended up, like you said, going to Toronto, um, and then yeah, that was kind of my first year playing with my own age group, and it definitely was a step down from what I was used to. So I think I was just more physically mature and was able to kind of do, more things that I, wanted to do that maybe I
whatever
wouldn't
you
have been able
wanted.
to.
Do whatever you wanted, dude. I remember one time, I remember this place so clearly, dude. Because I played against you that year. I don't know if you remember. I was playing for Toronto Red Wings for a quick
Yeah,
cup of
bro.
coffee. But I remember, dude, looking at you, and I'm like, dude, is he behind our net right now? Like, dude, you were behind our net, like making a play, like out front, And I was like, what is going on here? I also remember that year, like there was a scrum or something, and you grabbed my wrist. You grabbed me by the wrist. And dude, I'm a tough guy, dude. I mean, even now, like I was a fighter in the cube, basically. And when you grabbed my fucking wrist, dude, I was like, holy fuck. I was just, that's a strong man. We were fucking 12 or 13, 14.
Yeah,
14.
that was a fun year for sure. And then like obviously the Toronto exposure was great. Like I had never really gotten exposure to, scouts or nothing like that. So that year I think was kind of when, everyone started to see me as a player and my maturity and all that. And then obviously that led to the OHL draft. So
Yeah, OHL draft, you get taken first overall. That was pretty anticipated. Can you talk about your mindset? Because, like I mentioned earlier, you were always a mature kid. I feel like you always had your goals set in stone. And we're gonna talk about the NHL draft soon. But like, just speaking of the OHL draft, you're taken first overall. I feel like you're a guy with a plan that's just going into that OHL draft and just thinking like, I don't care who picks me. Like, I'm
yeah.
playing in that league next year and I'm gonna light it up and keep going with my process with my plan.
Yeah, that's exactly it because you hear stories all the time of guys that kind of tell OHL teams, "Look, I'm not going to play in the league next year. Don't pick me," so they can drop and go to a team of their choice, pretty much. And I didn't do that. I mean, obviously, I think it's pretty special to get picked as high as you can, and that was a pretty special moment, and special opportunity, and um, I think Sarnia was, it's such a great spot. I mean, I love it there. I had such a great billet family. I still visit in the summers, and I really, really enjoyed my time there. So, my first year in Sarnia was probably honestly my best year because I had shoulder surgery after my first season. My second year, I kind of struggled a bit, but my first season in OHL was probably the most fun I ever had playing hockey. I think I had like 16 goals or something in like 40
Yeah,
games
16
as
goals.
a 16-year-old, which is pretty good for a D-man in that league. And I think honestly too, my first year in the OHL, I think that was probably one of the most competitive years that the OHL has ever seen with the talent. That was the year like McDavid and Dylan Strome were dominating for Erie, and then Max Domi and Dvorak, and then we're with London. And then Oshawa won it that year. They were loaded, and Sault Ste. Marie with Tony Deanne. Like that year was unbelievable with
I
talent.
remember that. That's like why everyone wanted to go to the OHL. Like the OHL at that time was prime time.
Bro, it was insane, honestly. Like I think about it still to this day. I'm like, gosh, like the talent in that league at that time was special. That's a great league though, for sure. This whole CHL is pretty special.
Yeah, definitely. So you talked about how like your first year you had 16 goals, you had 33 points in 42 games as a defenseman. You were actually given an assistant captain. How are you at Christmas? I'm pretty sure. And
Yeah,
then you go on the following year. You talked about battling injuries, and then your NHL draft. That was your NHL draft year. You get taken first round, 16th overall by the Arizona Coyotes. In my opinion, like that was a slip for you. I don't know what you were ranked. I didn't even like really check before doing this pod, but in my opinion, and even now looking at how everything played out, you were a slip clearly. But back then, it was like I felt like you were going to get picked earlier. I don't know how you were feeling, but can you talk about draft day, that experience? And I also know Arizona traded up for you, so just bring us back to that day.
yeah, that was obviously a really special day. I think honestly, it was a longer wait than I think we anticipated. We were getting a little antsy. I was staying calm. I was trying to just keep my parents calm. But yeah, like I said, I had that shoulder surgery after my first season in the OHL, and I mean, after that season, going into my draft year, I mean, it was ranked like I was 1 and 2. It was like me and Austin Matthews, everyone was talking about, and then I ended up obviously not having the best year my second year in the OHL and ended up slipping a bit. Um, so I mean, I knew I didn't have the year I wanted to, and it was what it was, and I wasn't going to let it, um, you know, do anything to me mentally or nothing like that. And I vocalized that, and I met with almost every team at the combine, and I vocalized that I had a lot of good meetings, and I think Arizona just kind of saw that more than others. Um, and it was actually a really cool experience. Like Arizona told me they were seriously considering taking me at 7 when they took Kells. And I'm happy they didn't because now they have both of us. But when they saw I kept slipping and slipping, they knew they saw an opportunity to trade up. And so it was really cool because I was sitting in the stands and Arizona was like the first table when I looked down to the floor there. They were the first table. So I looked down and one of the head scouts turned and looked up to me and gave me a wink, like after the 15th pick. So I tapped my dad. I'm like, Dad, I think Arizona is going to do something here. And he's like, Oh, really? And I was like, Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to go to Arizona. It was really cool because
Sure, that guy
I
just
thought,
winked at me unless he twitched.
what's that?
I said, I'm pretty sure that guy just winked at me unless he was twitching.
Yeah, no, he for sure did. And then all of a sudden, Chikes got on the phone. And I was like, man, they must be doing something. And sure enough, they made the trade with Detroit, which was pretty cool because Datsuk was a part of that trade. And then, so they ended up taking me at 16. And I mean, I couldn't be happier. Like, Arizona's got to be one of the best places to play in the NHL when it comes to, living in Arizona and growing the game. Like I said, being from Florida, I think it's cool to be in another southern market. So I love it here. I just bought my first house here, and I hope I'm here for a very, very long time. So it all ended up working great.
Yeah, I love to hear that, dude. Can you talk a bit about like after the draft, like you mentioned like you were sitting a bit longer than you expected. You're taking 16th Ovi, but like I mentioned earlier, this is what I wanted to talk about is how I feel like you've always been a guy with a plan, right? And I feel like you talked about how you didn't really let that get to your mental and how you kind of stuck to your plan. Like you got picked up 16th Ovi, and even Keller, who was taken 7th, decided to go to BU and whatnot and play a year in BU before going to the national. And you went in there and you made the team and you played all 68 games that year. So can you talk about like just right after the draft, your mentality going into that summer? You know, you got your first NHL camp and your goal is obviously to make that team.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I basically had the mindset that, I was going to play for Arizona that year. Like I wasn't going to accept anything else. And, I didn't really, I told the team that too. Like I told the team, look, I expect to be playing here next year. And I think there was plenty of opportunity. And I think I was able to just roll with it. And I played every preseason game and I played there was a few of those games in preseason where I played the most minutes out of anybody on the team. And I remember there was a quote like Dave Tippett said, like, look, this guy just played 25 minutes for me in preseason. How am I just going to send him back to juniors? Like we need him to be playing for us. So that was really special. I'll never forget that day when, because you can play 10 games in the NHL before the team's got to make a decision. I remember the team told me, I think it was after the 8th or ninth game, that I was going to stay. Dave Tippett called me in his office and said, that's when they told me to move in with Max Domi, which was another really great experience. But I remember that day really clearly. That was definitely an exciting one, and I just felt like I achieved one of my goals that I've always had of playing the NHL at 18. So
Yeah, so now you're in the National Hockey League. You're living the dream, literally. You're 18. Um, can you talk about like just playing in the National Hockey League at such a young age? Because you've dreamed about this your whole life. So like, although you're a super mature guy, no matter how mature you are, I'm sure there was a ton of like holy shit moments. Like,
yeah.
wow, like for like like when Keller came on, he talked about how like for him the private plane was crazy. Can you talk about, was there maybe a moment to you that sticks out that was like, holy shit, man, like this is it?
Yeah, I think honestly, bro, I had one of those moments like every single game because I mean, I'd be playing against these guys I grew up watching my entire life and idolizing. Like, I'll never forget the first time I played against Sidney Crosby because that guy's my idol. Like, I grew up loving that guy more than anything. And then playing against him for the first time, it was so bizarre. Like, I go from Sarnia playing against kids, a little bit older than me, some are my age, and like, just it's just not the same as then going into it. I'm in Arizona and I'm playing with Shane Doan as my captain, like a 40-year-old guy who's been in the league forever and an absolute legend of the game. And it's just crazy. Like I walk in the room, he's the nicest guy ever. He gives me a hug. He's like, I can't tell you how excited we are to have you. And my son was so excited when we picked you. He knows all your stats from Sarnia. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm excited to even be standing in front of you. Like,
You're talking to me? Are you talking to
yeah.
me?
No, exactly. I mean, there was just so many little moments, and then I remember before my first NHL game, the equipment manager comes in and he's like writing notes down for everybody, and he's asking like what you want in your stall, like what drinks do you want, what color tape do you want, and I'm just like, what's going on right now? Because you walk into the rink for a game day, and you got all your drinks lined up already mixed, you got all the tape you want, you got thin black, thick black, thin white, two rolls of clear, like you got everything you need right there. And that was another one. And then yeah, of course, like the private planes and the lifestyle, like you just wake up, go to the rink, and you have all day to do whatever you want. And like it's just you can't beat the lifestyle. So there was definitely a lot of moments for sure.
I love that, dude. I love that you brought up that little stuff about like in the locker room, how like you have everything you need when you walk in because like you're a 4-year NHL vet, man. Like you've been in the league for a while. It's easy to get used to
High
that
five,
stuff.
bro.
It's easy to get used to that stuff though, you know what I mean? So like for you to bring that up is crazy because for a guy like me, like that's something that I took for granted when I was like in the queue. We didn't get the stuff in the stall, but even just having free
Yeah,
tape, like
yeah,
and now it's like you don't gotta ask the boys to throw you tape. It's like you got your own two rolls in the stall, like
yeah.
whatever you
Right.
need is already there. That's like bananas, man. That's national. That's
Yeah,
national.
for sure, for
But
sure.
can you talk a bit about your injury? You had a knee injury. I think it was in 2000 and oh, you had two of them.
Yeah, so I had two knee surgeries. My first one was after my first season in the NHL. It actually happened training. It was really unlucky and unfortunate. It happened training. I was doing hill sprints at my cottage in Canada. And the grass was like a little bit long. Like they hadn't cut the grass on the hill for a little bit. And so I ran up the hill and then we were going back down and I ended up stepping in a pothole and my leg like hyperextended and my ankle rolled a bit and it ended up like tearing my meniscus in my left knee. So I had to get that repaired. So I missed a few months of my second season, the first few months, and then I came back and I was feeling really good. Like I got set up with this rehab guy in Philly. It was the
With the
best guy I've
Kaiser,
ever worked
right?
with. What's that?
Was that with the Kaiser?
No, so we used a bunch of Kaiser equipment. And
Yeah, I
then
saw
they
a
actually,
video about that. That's why.
yeah, they actually sponsored me a bit for my second knee injury, and they gave me a bunch of free equipment, and I did a little video commercial for them. But yeah, but anyways, after my first one, I came back. I was feeling really good. I was playing some of my best hockey, and it was like the third to last game of the season, and we were already out of the playoffs. So it was kind of, it was
Unfortunately.
games that just, yeah. And then I ended up getting like slew-footed from behind in Calgary, and it tore my ACL clean. So that was a tough day. That was a tough few days because I had just done rehab for like 5 months, the entire summer, and then I just knew I was in for the same exact summer. So it was a tough 2 years mentally. It was a grind, but I got through it, and then I came back after that second knee injury, my third season, and it was tough. Like I was going through a lot of tendonitis because that ACL surgery, they cut out the middle third of your patellar tendon, and that becomes your new ACL. So you just have a lot of tendonitis through your kneecap pretty much, and it didn't really heal quick enough. But obviously, I was good enough to play, so I was just trying to play through it. And then last year was a lot better. Like I had a summer, I took a month of just doing nothing, let it heal, and last year was night and day difference. So I think you saw that kind of in my play last year, or I guess technically this year we didn't finish,
Yeah,
but
yeah, this season.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. This season, you had a career high 26 points, a career high 12 goals, 14 assists for 26 points. Can you talk a bit about your knee rehab? I think it was your second time, dude. I don't know if you did the same thing your first time, but I remember the second time you were posting everything on your Instagram. Do you remember that when you were like,
Yeah.
it legit looked like, I remember DMing you, like, it looked like a grown man playground. And
Yeah.
if there's one thing that I love, I mean, I love the game. I love everything about the game, but I think I love the off-ice part of the game more than some guys.
Yeah.
Seeing that, man, like you did some really unique stuff. Like, can you talk a bit about that whole experience and how like the crazy weird stuff that you were doing and how it helped you? You were doing stuff you never done before.
Yeah, that was honestly, bro, like that was such a positive in my career and such a great point in my career to be able to like I took a negative obviously and turned it into something positive because being able to work with that guy Bill Knowles in Philadelphia, he's the best at what he does. I mean, no doubt about it. This guy is, um, he really he like revolutionized the way you can rehab an injury, and he's something special. So to be able to work with him and just see the way he go about working with his clients and getting them comfortable and getting them out of their out of the comfort zone first off, but he gets you to trust them. So like I had all the trust in the world in this guy, and if I was going by what the surgeon told me to do, I wouldn't have been walking for like six to 8 weeks, and here I was a week out of surgery and like pretty much weight bearing on my knee, and it's just crazy how he pushes the limits and in a safe and controlled environment. But there's no one better than him. So I mean, and I still train with him. I still get programs from him. I still go see him after seasons, and I keep in touch with him. So he's somebody that really changed my career for the better and changed kind of the way I look at training and just kind of my mindset on that. So definitely
I,
great
I'm
mentor.
actually gonna ask you to send me one of those videos of you training with him because I remember just you doing stuff like you're holding a stick, you got like two like
Yeah,
loops around, like just bouncing on one foot, then doing like a flip on the ground, coming up. It was just insane stuff and like just athletic stuff and stuff. You're doing
exactly.
everything one leg and stuff that you never see, which is why it was so intriguing. Why I wanted to ask about it. Um, but moving on from that, can you talk about like how you feel now? You just played in your fourth season in the National Hockey League versus like your first year, maybe your second year, even your third year. Now you're a fourth year. It's safe to say you're a vet in the league. Talk about like just like how you look at everything now. You got a bit more money in your pockets. You just got your first house. You were able to design it and all that adult cool stuff that you get to do at such a young age.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that was really cool to go through that experience with the house and all that. Purchasing your first house is always something special, and I got really lucky with everything. I mean, it's kind of a perfect fit for me here, and I really lucked out. So that was really cool and special, and it worked out great because it all got completed right before the virus came. So we've just been able to enjoy everything, and we see something new every day, just to kind of admire and so that's been cool. And then yeah, in terms of the hockey side of things, I think it's definitely I definitely feel like I'm starting to take another jump and another step and starting to have more of a voice in the room and just kind of starting to gain that leadership role because obviously, there's definitely steps you got to go through to earn that respect and gain that trust of your teammates. And I feel like I'm getting there and I'm getting closer. And I feel like it's time for me to kind of take that next step with that and be a leader for this team and just kind of help us moving forward with that. And I think it's crazy how fast it goes by. Like next season, I'll already be my fifth year in the league, which is just nuts to think about. It really does fly by, and you can't take anything for granted. Every day in this league is a great one, and it's hard to make the league, but it's harder to stay in the league. So continue to have that mindset to push forward and to work on your game and your craft is something you got to continue to have, and I'm definitely trying to keep that mindset.
Yeah, definitely. That's unreal stuff. You've always been a huge family guy. When I went to go see you and Kels play in Montreal, even your whole family was there. Your grandpa was there. Your sister was there. Your parents. Um, Talk about like just having them. I'm pretty sure they're there right now with you in Arizona. So just
Yeah.
talk about like having your family support throughout your whole career and how important that was to you because growing up in Florida, like I did the same thing as you pretty much, except for the National Hockey League yet. But growing up in Florida, like you miss out on a lot of friendships when you're a hockey player, I find, because we're always going to tournaments. We're missing parties, if you got a couple Jewish friends, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
so
sure.
we're always missing those back then. I remember it, dude. I literally missed every single one because of hockey. So like your family's really got to be there for you in order for you to stay like mentally stable. Can you talk about what that's meant to you throughout your whole career, even up
Yeah,
to now?
yeah, for sure. I mean, we're definitely a very close-knit family. Um, yeah, I have a great relationship with my sister. Um, I didn't get to see her all the time because she was in college and I was away playing juniors and all that. So like we would really only see each other in the summertime. But we always maintained communication and always had that close bond and always sent each other funny videos on Insta or Twitter or wherever it may be. And then obviously my parents are they're everything to me. Like they spoil me. They've been here with me through this virus and waking up early and still cooking me meals before I go train and all that. So I mean, they would all do anything for me when it comes to my career, which is really special to have that support and just know that, they're going through it with me pretty much is really special. And then, yeah, like you said, I had my grandpa there in Montreal. He's my role model. I think he's 81, I think.
It looks
And,
like a
uh,
beast. So
yeah, he still plays hockey in the summertime. Every Wednesday, we have three generations playing together. My dad, him, and my dad, my grandpa, and me. So those are memories that I'll have with me forever. To play, not many people can say they play with three generations. So I'm actually wearing the hat right now. That's what this hat is. It says Pakenham Hockey or Packin Hockey. That's kind of the little old timers league up in Pakenham by our cottage that we play in every Wednesday night, and then we go for wings after. That's wing night in Arm Prior. So,
wing
um,
waters.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's all good. I mean, you need that support from your family for sure.
Yeah, definitely, dude. Chick, man, that's pretty much all I got for you, man. You've taken off. Like I had a bunch of questions, but you just kind of ran with every single one. So, man, I really appreciate you coming on the pod.
Great, bro. Of
You killed.
course. Thanks for having me, bro. I appreciate it.
So there you have it. That's the best looking guy in the National Hockey League on the Buzz Pod. This is the first time ever that there's a better looking guy than me on the other side of the screen. So that was a bit tough for me to get my words out in the beginning. But,
I know Kels wasn't up there, so
oh no, not even close. But thanks again, bro.
all right, bro. Take care.